We'll leave them off. I told them to turn it on just as we start the Q&A.
Hello. That was not, for entertainment, that wasn't very dramatic, was it? I know. Like, we should have had some entry music. Where's my Beyonce wind machine? I don't know. Something. So I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Christine Simmons, and I am COO of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. You may know a little show we put on every year. But I also have the honor of serving as immediate past president of your UCLA Alumni Association and on the Board of Regents. We are so excited. It's Alumni Day, in case anybody just found their way to campus and saw the immense amount of school spirit here. This panel is absolutely phenomenal. I am just honored to be on the stage with these gentlemen. They are all game changers and legends in the entertainment space, and of course, they're Bruins. So I have the honor of introducing them. So Tom Corson has been at the helm of the record industry for over 2 decades. He is currently co-chairman and COO of Warner Brothers Records. And prior to that, he was president and COO of RCA Records. Who remembers Little Dog, Little Phonograph? Yes?
Nipper.
Yeah, Nipper. Nipper. We learned something new today, Nipper. For those of you that don't, you just made the rest of us feel old. Thank you. He also served as the general manager and executive vice president of Arista Records. Tom oversees, okay, you guys ready? This is a very long list. No, we're going through it. You've gone through it, so we're going through it today, okay? Promotion, marketing, publicity, digital sales, international video and operations. He's played a leading role in developing the careers of a few people you might know. Alicia Keys, Chris Brown, Foo Fighters, Justin Timberlake, Khalid, Kings of Lion, Pentatonix. I love their Christmas album. Is not amazing. Pink, Miley Cyrus, Shakira, Sia, Usher, and just a few others. Can we give him a hand, please? Tim McNeal. So Tim used to serve on the board of directors of the UCLA Alumni Association with me as well, so we go way back. But he is a veteran of television programming development, and he is the head of creative talent development and inclusion at Disney ABC Television Group. In his role, Tim is the primary liaison between Disney, ABC diversity-related coalitions, nonprofit arts institutions, and entertainment industry guilds. He leads strategic planning for the company's diversity goals. Prior to joining Disney in 2006, Tim was part of the programming team that launched the WB television network in 1995. As vice president of drama development, McNeil developed such groundbreaking series as Dawson's Creek, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Seventh Heaven, and Felicity. Yes? Any fans? Yes? And of course, those were all fundamental in building that network's success. You guys give it up for Tim, please. And last but certainly not least, we have Dan Beckerman. He serves as the president and CEO for AEG. You know, this little company you might know, kind of big in the entertainment and sports space. They are the world's leading presenters of sports and entertainment programming. In addition of key AEG divisions that he oversees, such as facilities, AEG Presents, AEG Sports, AEG Global Partnerships, AEG Europe, AEG Asia, AEG Digital. He also oversees the AXS platform where you go on and buy your tickets. I know this because my 3-time WNBA champion Sparks play in Staples Center, which AEG oversees. So we're so excited that you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to dive right in. But before we do, we're going to break a little ice. But for anybody else, my kid's the only one that's here. What is something that you did while at UCLA that you wouldn't want your kids, nieces, or nephews to know?
Would or wouldn't?
Would not want them to know.
Dan should answer that question.
It's a difficult list. It's a long.
It's a long list.
A long list.
It's
luckily,
a long list.
My daughters are not here.
Yeah.
I did not set a great example, and actually, I bumped into my college roommate who's here from my I think sophomore and junior year. So we have a gag order. So
okay, all right. We've all signed NDAs. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys. I'm gonna let it go though, even though we had NDAs. No, we're excited that you guys are here. So let's start a little bit. Tell us about your time here at campus, and it's an experience that stayed with you today in your professional work. Like, what was it about UCLA that just kind of propelled you through?
For me, it was the opportunities.
Yeah.
And I would have never been in the entertainment business if it wasn't for coming to UCLA. I was a kid from Seattle, and I came down here and loved the school and thought I'd go get a real job. And then I lucked into an internship at a small record label.
Yeah.
And here I am almost 40 years later.
That's fantastic. It really is kind of this global hub where so many opportunities come together and the networks are phenomenal, right? Dan, what about you? What is it that every day you remind you, like, okay, because of UCLA, I remember doing that and this has propelled me and helped me today?
I don't think I'd be in the sports business if it wasn't for UCLA. This is being on campus is where I fell in love with the sports business.
Yeah.
And going to basketball games, this is back in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, where there was a lot of success. When I went to graduate school through 96 and won a championship. So just going to all the football games and all the basketball games, just absolutely fell in love with sort of big-time sports.
Yeah.
And studying economics at the same time, was desperate to find a way to bring sports and business together, and was persistent and wouldn't have happened without UCLA.
That's fantastic. Tim, anything that stays with you every day?
For me, it was really about building a community. The people that I work with today are many of them are people that I knew when I was at UCLA. And then as I stayed in touch after graduating, other alumni that came through UCLA that work in the entertainment business, it gave me a leg up. Those relationships really enhanced my ability to access opportunity.
I love that, and that's really what Alumni Day is all about. That's what your Alumni Association is here for. The social capital that we have in this university and through our alumni base is absolutely amazing, and it literally, you can leverage that and do things, because social capital is how business gets done, yes?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, we're all in the entertainment space, and it's coming together in different ways. What are some of those trends and topics that you're seeing? We're hearing things like disruption and innovation and all of these cliche and cliche words. So what is it that you're seeing in your industry, Tom, that is really kind of the next big thing in music?
Well, it's no secret that streaming has arrived in our business, and now we're enjoying double-digit growth for the first time in many years. And
Yeah.
we've all survived, but more than anything, it seems like direct-to-consumer is where the opportunities are.
Yeah.
And you can see it in terms of the platforms we're working with, and they're collecting data, and they're learning about their customer and their users, and we have to be more strong in that respect. So I think you have to know your customer. You have to know what they're doing, what they're not doing. Preferences are easy to access, and data is prevalent, and be a data scientist, and really, more than anything, be an analyst.
Yeah. And Tim, how are you seeing that in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space?
Well, it pulls the curtain back for sure.
Yeah.
But to tag on, data is the key. Once you look at the data, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And to be able to see that, it gives you a starting point to really to scale up from there, and to figure out where your gaps are and close those gaps.
Yeah.
Streaming has definitely arrived, and that came from the tech business. Companies like Netflix, and they have forced us to get into that game and to really be aware of tracking our own data and knowing who our viewers are and knowing where the viewers are that we want to get.
Yeah. So Dan, when we talk about the customers and we talk about the fans and the fan experience, right, we're seeing that come together in really interesting ways in arenas across the globe. How is data, the fan experience, the digital experience, what are you seeing in your space?
Well, it has a big impact on how we design our venues, how we renovate our venues. There's a lot of talk about the impact of technology on sports, and data has taken over our industry just as it's taken over every industry. And there was some talk early on about it sort of competing with and maybe having a negative impact on the live experience. But I think in the last several years, you've seen the live experience absolutely take off with the growth in ticket sales and concerts and music and sports. And I think we see it as an opportunity to have technology to complement and enhance the live experience.
Yeah.
So utilizing technology and our social platforms and augmented reality and even virtual reality in some cases to really enhance the experience. Because I think there's really, what we've seen is this generation, the younger generation, the students of today, they crave the live experience. And that generation wants to have an experience more than they want a thing.
Yeah.
So we've seen it in our business just continue to grow with music. And music is really, for us, the leading edge because of the demographics that we attract at our festivals and some of our tours. So we learn a lot from that generation, and it certainly bleeds into sports as well.
That's great. And so, sitting here at UCLA, one of the top academic institutions in the world, how do you feel, because, we have our industry is sexy and it's fun and it's all of that stuff, right? But where do you see academia and the entertainment world? Like, I know for me, I oversee our archives and our library, and literally we have scientists preserving film and preserving all of these things that is the history and the legacy of art. So how do you see academia playing a role in entertainment in each of your worlds, Tom?
It's intrinsic in what we do. I mean, education is proper. Tech has moved all businesses. We don't have tech without proper education.
Right.
And then the feedback loop that comes from academia and into any industry, but particularly in our business, where schools of art, schools of music, learning, and because our goal here is not just to learn the data and understand it, but to have great content, right? So if we don't have people that are trained the right way, know how to communicate what they're doing and succeed to the highest level, then we're just going to be mired in mediocrity, which is what great institutions are not about.
Yeah. Tim, what about you?
Well, I actually think it's so important because with academia you learn your history, and without history you don't know where you can go.
Yeah.
If you don't know your past, and the connection between the two is so important because we can't move forward and expand our businesses without knowing where we've come, whether it's entertainment related or just the history of who we are as people.
Yeah. And it's almost cyclical at times, right? Do you see that, Dan? Do you find that that which we've learned in our legacy then comes to fruition again?
Yeah, and certainly in sports, and we've seen the page turn in sports when it comes to the relationship with academia. I see it with the students today, and back when I started in sports, and this was a long time ago, we were a very small organization, as it was very sort of mom and pop, a little unsophisticated in terms of how we did our analysis. And then today, we've seen it really turn the page, and we have a heavy reliance on data and analytics, and which just makes so many more opportunities. Our organizations are so much larger than they used to be. I mean, you could count on one hand the number of executives you'd have at a sports team, and now they're these large, flourishing organizations, and they really utilize sort of that next level of analysis and data and analytics.
Yeah. So speaking of that, where do you see, Tom, in your world, where is, as we're talking about employees, we're talking with alumni who are in different stages of their career, where are there some real opportunities in your organization or in your world, in the music world, for career opportunities and advancement? What should they be looking at and learning?
Well, it's a lot of things. Communication is super important, how to get along with people, learning your network, relationships, knowing your product, is critical. And so for anybody coming out of school, know what you're getting into, and when you get into the experience, maximize it.
Yeah.
And you may find out you don't want to do it.
Right.
That happens a lot too. And so, in that respect, take advantage of what you do. Just get in. If you think you're interested in sports or movies or music, get in and take any role you can get. There's a guy I used to work for. He started as an internal auditor, and he ended up as head of promotion at our label. Very, very interesting path.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
It's such a good point. I mean, we preach that to our employees every day, which is we have such a diverse company with so many different divisions, sports and music and sponsorship and communications, finance, legal. There's really no one way to advance. It used to be a little different than that. It used to be a pretty clearly defined path.
Yeah.
If you want to get there, here are the 5 steps you need to go through,
Right.
and really this is the department you need to do it. But it's just not like that anymore, and we put such a high value on understanding of the breadth of the industry and the breadth of the company. So I think that's fantastic advice, is get in. Where you start is not necessarily where you're going to finish, and we have great success stories at our company with people who started out as a salesperson for the LA Kings, and then they end up running the music division.
Yeah.
So get in the door, I think, is really good advice.
Now, Tim, you're on the creative side, right? You oversee and have developed amazing programs on writing and all of the different aspects of content creation and developing these diverse voices and stories. What about on the creative side of the entertainment industry? Is it the same thing? Is it relationship driven? What is the best bet for them to really kind of navigate your world in advancement?
Well, first it's craft. You have to know your craft and you have to study that. It's not something that you just wake up and you can do. There are people that instinctively can tell a story and know the right points to hit in telling a story, but really understanding the craft is the key to it. And then from there, being able to have relationships and be able to connect with the right people that can help to move your story forward. And it's really about inspiring people to kind of get on the train with you.
That's great. Now, we're going to be asking questions at some point, so make sure you're burning questions. I mean, it's not very often you have this type of Bruin on the panel, so start thinking about those questions. Let's talk Bruins. Since we're talking Bruins, let's talk Bruin heroes. Who are some of your Bruin heroes? I know for me, it's Annie Myers-Drysdale, of course, John Wooden. I mean, there's so many, Tom Bradley. What about you? What are some of your Bruin heroes, Tom?
Arthur Ashe.
Arthur Ashe.
No-brainer.
Yeah.
He's at the very top of my list, and for so many reasons why. They're obvious. And then you get into, some of the soccer players that have come out of UCLA, and I was on the JV team, so I was always looking up to those guys, and that was amazing. But there's really the beautiful thing about this school is that there's too many to count.
Right.
But I did meet Will Walton one day, and that was pretty exciting.
That's pretty cool. He's
pretty great.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. What about you, Dan?
Bill Walton's definitely at the top of my list, and he's still around, so we get to see him, and he's pretty amazing insight. Kareem, obviously, it's hard to not have Kareem on your list, and then people I work with, like Martha and Michael. They're my Bruin heroes.
Bruin heroes, living legends. Yes, that's fantastic. Tim, what about you? Bruin heroes.
I have a newspaper clipping on my wall that I've had on my wall for 20 years about Ralph Bunche.
Yes.
And I'm sure many of you have taken classes in Bunche Hall, but Ralph Bunche negotiated the Israel Peace Treaty. And as an African American, to be at that level in international politics, to this day, I revel in knowing that I went to the same school that he was a part of.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, and the other one, of course, Miss Ava DuVernay.
Yes.
And she has her own Barbie. I mean, come on, she's the boss and she has her own Barbie. That's phenomenal. Okay, so if you could ask one of the other panelists a question, what would it be?
I would ask, what does success look like?
Ooh, what does success look like? Who are you going to throw it to? Pick one.
I think Tim.
Tim, what does success look like? See how I just outsourced my job? That's what I learned at UCLA.
We cheated because he asked me the question earlier, and I had time to think about it. Well, he mentioned it. So for me, it's happiness. It's happiness in your life. It's fulfillment in what you do, and being at peace with that.
That's great.
And it's different for everybody.
Yeah. And when you meet Tim, like he just exudes like every time he just brings a calm to you. You always do. I love that. Okay,
Except on my drive to work every day.
Yeah.
You brought that up before as well.
Or when you're parking and trying to get here when there's construction. Okay. What about you? What question would you ask and to whom? Tim.
Oh, to me?
Yes. Sorry.
How do you want people to remember you?
Oh, that's a good one.
To Dan.
Oof. That's a tough one.
Right, we're going deep.
It is. It's funny. I don't think of my. I know in your introduction, it's hard to not get overwhelmed when you hear about all of these things. But when you kind of like, I've been at a place for such a long time and lived through it, it doesn't seem that big, and it's hard to think of yourself as a leader of an organization of that many people. But I guess as a leader, I would probably want to be remembered as someone who wasn't trying to be something that there weren't, someone who was inclusive and collaborative and team player, someone who did the work. But I think most importantly, not professionally, I'd want to be remembered as a good father and a good friend and a good husband.
That's fantastic. That's great. All right, last one. What question would you like to ask one of our panelists?
Well, I'd like to ask a question of you, if I could.
All right. Okay. All right. I'm ready.
Since you punted over here.
I know, right? I totally punted. All right. That's fair. That's fair.
But you've had some pretty amazing sports and entertainment experiences in your career, extremely accomplished. as you alluded to earlier with the Sparks, and that's how we know each other. Obviously, at Staples Center, had great success there. So I would ask you, what is it about your experience that enabled you to achieve at such a high level in such diverse industries?
Oh, good question. I wasn't ready for this.
I have a follow-up too, by the way.
Oh my God. Leave it
Like
to
me
the
to wait
Bruins
for
to
that
be an
answer, and then I have a follow-up for
overachiever,
you.
like such an overachiever. I would attribute it to perseverance, for sure. And here, I think what UCLA taught me, to answer one of my previous questions, but to answer yours as well, creative solutioning. Like, I actually used to play this game when I worked for Irvin, and so he would be like, so follow up with that woman about the thing that we met with. And I'd be like, what woman, what thing? Like, literally, that's all he would say. And so I'd play a game with myself so that way I could figure out what it is he was looking for before, so I didn't have to ask him any additional questions, because I felt that that made me far more valuable to him. If he didn't have to answer my questions, then I'm more valuable. So creative solutioning, perseverance, and just I carry a weight with me every day that I've been the first in many things, the first woman, the first African American. I've accomplished a lot, and there's a lot of people to whom I have a responsibility to make sure I'm not the last. And so that drives me every single day to make sure that I'm continuing to bust down doors and bring as many people along with me as I possibly can.
The perfect time to my follow-up, if I can ask. If you don't mind.
Yes.
So you were kind enough, this is going back, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years. You were on a panel for us for women in sports, which is something that is very important to us as we continue to try to grow women leaders in our company at sports. So you've obviously achieved at that level. So can you give me and everyone a little bit of a insight as to what some of the unique challenges are for women in the sports industry?
Oh, okay. Wow. I
Didn't
really
say it was
wasn't.
to make it easy.
I know, goodness. You have to. For me, it's again knowing that responsibility, right? But also understand it's that social dynamics. It's knowing your effect on a room, right? So when I walk into a room of all men, I know and I get a read of the room, making sure I understand my effect on that room. When I walk into a room of all women, I always want to make sure I know that effect on a room. So that way, because there's every version of me, like I equate it to music. I always want someone to download my song, right? But you may like the acoustic version, you may like the country version, you may like the folk version, so let me switch it up. Just as long as you download my song, that's all that matters. And so understanding kind of those dynamics, I think, is one of the things that women have to be conscious of constantly, so it makes it a little bit challenging. We tend to be underestimated. And there's a lot more amazing and empowering men who are allies to us, which is phenomenal, and we need more of that because we can't do it by ourselves. I'm a firm believer that we have to have these conversations together. We have a lot of women's empowerment conferences, which are fantastic, but we're kind of preaching to the choir, so we have to make sure that we talk with each other. I think I speak fluent chick and half fluent dude, so I can translate pretty well. But I think it's just kind of the social aspects of it is the first part, is just understanding how that works and all the intersectionalities that it is to be an executive these days. Whether it's your ethnic background, your gender, the level that you're at, your sexual orientation, whatever it is, all of those things, we have to see them as value. And so how we bring value, but at the end of the day, bring also it's value to the bottom line, business-minded, because that's what it's going to be. It can't just be about because I'm a woman, that's why I'm here. No, I'm also because I'm a woman. It's because I can add value in a way that's going to make the company money, or save the company money, or bring innovation, those types of things. So switching the narrative so that way people understand that it's a business imperative. To your point, I think those are the things that we're continuing to have to work on to get people to understand what makes it a little challenging. And then me personally doing it in heels. Not every woman, but I do.
Well said.
And either way is fine. But thank you for that question.
Thank
That was
you.
very kind. Thank you. Questions from the audience? Ooh, way in the back. Yes. Ooh, what does AEG stand for?
Is that a literal question, or you want to know what our values are? I'll answer both ways. So it stands for Anschutz Entertainment Group, and it's a collection of companies in sports and entertainment. So Staples sports teams like the LA Kings and the LA Galaxy, venues like Staples Center and the O2 in London, music business like music festivals like Coachella and New Orleans Jazz Fest. So it's broad sort of sports and real estate like LA Live. So it's kind of a broad thing. What do we stand for? I would say, no, I won't get into our core values, but I think it was a literal question. I'll answer it.
Right here.
I have a question for Mr. Corson. Here, please.
What do you think is next after streaming? Like, we went from vinyl to CDs to digital music.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to survive. Now, there's a lot of conversation about D2C stuff. So, and somebody whispered in my ear the other day about blockchain. If I could explain blockchain, I might understand what they were talking about. But I got the version for dummies. I think I kind of get it. And that seems to be a couple of folks' guess on the end around to streaming platforms, if that's what you're asking. Yeah.
Over here. Okay, we're going to go right here. Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Who scheduled this the same time as the tech panel is what I want to know.
The tech people.
And a follow-up to that question is, as somebody who's worked in the music industry for many years and trying to follow the trends into music and tech, I see what you mean about the data analytics and stuff being so important now in the streaming environment. So how does somebody like me who graduated from UCLA in the early 90s stay relevant and become, knowledgeable on the tech aspect of it, since that's where my career is taking me?
Yeah. Assume you're asking me that question.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I ask that my question every day. I graduated in '82. I'm not exactly the kid that just got out of school. Hang with the young guys and the young gals, exactly, and pay attention and be open and challenge yourself and read the data and read the analysis and challenge it and just work hard, at staying relevant. And by the way, don't ever forget that all that stuff only matters if you have great music and great artists, and that is where you always win. And somehow you'll figure out how to get it to people.
That's great. Right there.
Hello. I had a quick question for Mr. McNeal. Where do you see, especially with streaming and the changes that are happening to the industry, where do you see the craft and field of writing moving towards?
It's all about the story, and it starts there and it ends there. So again, it doesn't, we'll figure out the tech part of it, but it starts with telling a good story, whether it's a comedy or a drama.
And we're seeing a common thread here, right? So yes, all the ways it's delivered, all the ways it's consumed, it still has to be good, right? This gentleman, and then over here. Yes, right there.
Hello, my name is Guillermo. I'm a recent graduate of the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs. I have a lot of passion for helping the community, but also have a big passion for music, particularly songwriting. And as someone who hasn't been studying music these past couple of years, but has been playing songwriting, I was wondering, particularly to Mr. Corson, how would I kind of venture out, this being my first time as a songwriter, into this industry?
Yeah, just get busy. I mean, there's a lot of workshops. You can go to ASCAP, BMI, publishing companies, especially as a writer. I'd encourage you to do that. Work in a studio, be the guy carrying around all the stuff and going to get the food and doing all that stuff. You got to get in, and if you hang around in the studio long enough, someone will ask you what your dream is, and if your dream is to be the best songwriter in the world, then you're not going to get it by just dreaming about it. You got to go out and just put yourself out there. Go to clubs, meet artists, meet other struggling songwriters. But there's a lot of workshops available. NARIS has a lot. The ASCAP and BMI people have a lot. There's ways in. Yeah.
That's great. Right here. Yes.
So I have a question about, I guess it would be for Tim. how do you get into a writer's room? You have a UCLA graduate, great writer themselves, wants to learn the craft from PA up kind of thing, willing to do that. If you don't know somebody on the writing staff or on the show, how do you get into a writer's room?
Similar to what Tom was saying, you get as close to the fire as you can without, being in the room, but getting to know the people that are in the writer's room and working on your craft while you're trying to find that entry point. The 80% of first-time writers get their first job after being a writer's assistant. There are programs like one that I run that create access for underrepresented voices that haven't found their way in, and then just by a good hustle. It's all about relationship. I travel around a lot and I talk to college students all over the country, and one, I tell them the first thing is you got to get to Hollywood. And I get heckled from everyone in New York because they think that they're the center of entertainment. But getting connected to decision makers is also important, but also building a community around you of your peers, because information is power, and the people around you may have information that's going to help you get through a door that maybe they can't get through.
Great.
An intern.
Intern.
Yes.
Be an intern. The Academy has an internship program. It's called the Gold Program. Please check it out. Frisbee, yes.
This question is for Dan.
I remember you.
Okay.
Very well.
Everybody, if you don't know Frisbee, he is the alumni, the UCLA alumni. He served this university very well.
Legendary.
You may not say that after the question.
Oh, boy.
I suspect, given where you are in your life, you're an expert on fan experience because of all the operations that you run. If you didn't, or if you weren't an expert in that area, you wouldn't be successful. So you also mentioned that your best experiences, or some of your best experiences at UCLA, were football and men's basketball championship. And that was 1995, not 1996.
Right. Of course. I celebrated all the way through.
Sort of like
I just finished.
A centennial celebration.
Yes.
Two-part question. Have you been to a UCLA football game or men's basketball game in the last 5 years? And if you have, what do you believe, how did you perceive that as a fan? Did you have a good time? No. I'll leave it at that for the question.
It's a leading question.
Yes, take his mic, please.
Very
take his
leading
mic.
question. I will say this, and I'm not saying this just because you asked the question. So I have been. I don't go as much as candidly, I don't go as much as I'd like to, because I go to events for a living, and I do it 4 or 5 nights a week, and on my night off, I just want to go to a movie or go to dinner or something. So I don't do it as much as I should. But when Pauley was redone, I did go to a couple of games. I love the venue. I love what they did to the venue. To understand the fan experience, you have to be a fan, and I am first and foremost a fan. And one of the things, you're going to laugh, but one of the things that I remember about the fan experience and what kind of got me hooked was sort of the organic nature of the fandom at UCLA games when I would see you there. And the chants and the cheers that you would lead before the game, that was a big part of it for me. And I don't feel, while the venue is fantastic and the food is better and the sight lines are great and the score, all that is fantastic, I didn't feel the same groundswell of fan support that I felt in 1987. Now, here he's going to the mic. Here he goes. Look out.
I said take his mic.
Good answer. We'll talk later.
There we go. Okay. And what about this side over here? Over here, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Beckerman. it took a lot of years and a lot of pushing of soccer because the other major sports didn't appreciate having a sport that was from other countries and stars from other countries. Do you think now that the U.S. is ready to accept it as one of the major sports?
I do, and I've worked, when I started working in soccer in 1998 when our company acquired the LA Galaxy, I did not like soccer, and I did not like it for many, many years. But I will tell you now, I love it. I absolutely love it, and I think with time and the growth of the sport and the quality getting better and the venues getting better and the exposure that people in the United States have to soccer now, you can wake up on Saturday morning and watch the English Premier League or Bundesliga on Saturday mornings, and just the availability of soccer content and sort of the more international focus that we get in this country with the World Cup coming, I think it'll continue to grow. I'll tell you this, I'm fortunate enough on Tuesday nights, I get to co-teach a class here, like 2 doors down, on the sports business. I teach that class with Peter Guber. I took his class 25 years ago when I was a student here, and now I get to teach with him. And I'll tell you, we bring a different guest to class every week to talk about different aspects of the sports business. And on Tuesday night, we talked about social media and sports. And I brought, as sort of a surprise guest to the class, I brought Zlatan Ibrahimovic from the Galaxy to come and talk to the students. And I'll tell you, if the students' reaction to him is any indication that soccer at least has promise or future in this country, I think we're on the right path.
I'm going to clap for that.
Yeah. Go here and then there. Okay.
Hi. So my question is, these days, most internships, because of like labor laws and stuff, most internships require school credit in order for you to do the internship. But most jobs within like music or like your industries also require experience. So what do you say to someone who like is stuck in the middle, like they're a graduate, so they can no longer do these like unpaid internships, but they don't have the experience to like break into the industry like that?
Are we talking music again, or anyone? Yeah, look, I worked with a lot of people over my career who never had a college education. One of my bosses never went to college. I wish he had, but he was a very difficult guy. But I learned a lot from him. I worked for another guy who graduated Harvard Law School. So I've seen it from every aspect. You can still hustle your way up. You can still figure out a way in. You can go on tour with bands. You can do. There's a million things. The music industry is a funny business. It has a lot of tentacles that other businesses don't have. And so you can be anywhere from an agent to a publisher to a record label person to a musician to a writer to a roadie to a this to a that. You can work at a radio station. You can do things that don't require to go through formal ways, and you can work your way in. And then before long, you'll have a little experience and someone will offer you a nice job.
And also look into volunteer opportunities as well. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations that do productions that are in entertainment, that are in music, that may need someone to, score something for them or to produce something for them. And they will kindly take volunteer charitable work. And that still is a skill set. That still is experience that you can put on your resume and talk about what you've done. So volunteering with the nonprofit space is a really great way to also get experience when you can't get hired too.
By the way, work with artists.
Yeah.
Most of them haven't gone to school.
Yeah.
In my business.
Yeah. Here and then over there.
Yeah. For all three of you, you've achieved very much success in each of your industries, and to achieve that, you have to have a good mentor or somebody who believes in you. So I would like to know who believed in you and how far did that take you?
I'll do that. Sometimes having someone who doesn't believe you can push you even further. And I've had those people as well as I've had those that have been amazing mentors to me. For me, there was a guy by the name of Reuben Cannon who was actually the first job that I got out of college. And while I might as well have not gotten paid for the amount of work that I did, it was about the access and the opportunity to be in that space and to learn from him. But 30 years later, he's still someone that's in my life that I go to as a touchstone. You know, when I'm at a crossroads and need to make a decision, he's a person that I confide in.
Great. Do you guys want to answer that?
Go ahead.
Okay. I've had several along the way. I think the first was the one who gave me my first opportunity in sports, when just took a big chance on me, someone who didn't have much experience when I started working for the Clippers. And to sort of tie it back to the question before, is sort of had to take a job to get into an industry that might have been beneath what your friends were getting. And you get kind of strange looks from your friends, and you're sort of underemployed, but in the right silo, so you kind of make the sacrifice. So that's one thing I would do, is sort of take the ribbing from your friends and get the lower level job, and then check back in 10 years and you'll probably be where you want to be. And then along the way, I've had great mentors. My boss, when I started working at AEG, gave me great access and exposure to areas outside of my discipline that I never would have had exposure to, and would never been able to sort of lead an organization that's diverse without having the exposure and someone sort of championing you, someone identify you as with potential, and gave me opportunities. So I've had good luck along the way too. It's hard work is important, but you need a couple of breaks along the way.
My path is very similar to yours, but there's one person in mind, a guy named Gil Friesen. He ran A&M Records for a while, and he produced and conceived of 20 Feet from Stardom, which won the Academy Award for the best documentary. What he gave to me was irreplaceable, amazing. But it also comes with a healthy chip on my shoulder, too, because I've been knocked back plenty of times looking for somebody to tell me what to do, and you just got to grind.
There's this guy that was told that he wasn't going to make it in the entertainment business, and he was a young guy trying to make it as a sportscaster, and his boss told him he should start thinking about another job. Fast forward, he's now the chairman of the Walt Disney Company, the largest entertainment company in the world. And it was that conversation that really drove him to succeed.
Mine is 6'9", used to wear short shorts, used to play for the Lakers. And actually met him here on campus. So it was at what for us old people, they call it the Student Activity Center now. It used to be the men's gym. They were playing ball, and I randomly went up to Irvin, and at the time, I was pre-med, talk about hustle and self-taught. I was pre-med here at UCLA, and I wanted to open up clinics. And so I approached him to pick his brain about that, and then fast forward, he gave me a shot to run a professional sports team when I had never done so before, so, after working for him, but yeah. The gentleman right back here.
Hi there. Sergio Gonzalez. This question is for Mr. McNeal, but anyone can answer. The power of user-generated content and the influence is unmistakable, not just for entertainment, but across industries. How do you think about creating programs that empower storytellers beyond your platform? So we've heard about the hustle it takes to get onto an internship, get into the writer's room for existing projects, but there are a limited number of roles there. But going to where the writers, where the content creators already are, so that Disney becomes the first choice for this talent to go to, especially as you think about differentiating investments like Hulu. So how do you create these programs that scale beyond your existing projects so you go to where the writers are to help them develop their craft?
Well, we're doing that now. Our creative executives are scouring those platforms to look for that user-generated content, to find those fresh voices, to find where the new trends are, and those interesting voices that are not currently on our platforms. Oftentimes, we look at that as the incubator for us to be able to take them and then develop content with them that is appropriate for our platforms.
That's good. I have a question for you guys. You asked me about being a woman in sports and what I did. So what is your perspective on how we continue to diversify both from a gender perspective and a demographic perspective in our industry? It's kind of known for being, both sports and entertainment is known for being not diverse, right? So how do you guys see that moving forward, and how can we be successful in doing so as leaders of these organizations?
I'll start. It's critical for our survival. If we look at our employee base right now, we have 70% millennials, And if you look at our fan base in our business, it is so diverse from a sports fan, and they're all very, in each genre, each team, each venue, each market is very, very different. A Coachella fan is very different from a Rolling Stones fan, is very different from a Kings fan or a Lakers fan or a Galaxy fan. So
Sparks fan.
And a Sparks, of course. But our fan bases are so diverse that if we, as a leadership group, don't mirror that diversity, both in terms of our age and our ethnicity and our experience and our voice and our sexuality, then we won't be successful. Mm-hmm. So we view it as mission critical.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah. Same thing in music.
Yeah, I mean, exactly the same thing, if not more, in certain respects, because some of the artists you mentioned earlier, represent every community, and I've got more, and so we're very proud of that. And the last company I came from, I looked at our leadership one day because we were in an offsite, and I was sort of kind of doing the math, and I was like, okay, this is really good, actually. This is actually ahead of what society is and ahead of what most people want, but how can we do better, and how can we make it more rich for everyone? Mm-hmm. And so at Warner, when I showed up there, it wasn't that way, and we're working very hard to get to a point where we feel the representation from all communities is more than appropriate.
That's great.
Well, I think diversity and inclusion is a necessity for the success of any of our businesses. Without that, you're not telling authentic stories. You're not reaching your audience in a way that they want to be reached. And what we've all learned in our companies is you've got to be there for your audience the way that they want you to be there, when they want you to be there. Yeah. And so you have to be able to have those authentic voices behind the scenes that know where they want you to address them, to meet them.
That's fantastic. All right, so we're going to take a couple more questions. Yes, sorry, since you're right here. It's coming. We're giving him his exercise. The next one's going to be all the way in the back.
Hi there. So my question is, with the current politics and the trade war, how is it for the next 2 years? Is your stock price going to be influenced? Oh. Positive, negative?
We're a private company.
Ditto.
Yeah, there's only one public company up here.
Well, we're very invested in China with the park that we opened a few years ago. But our relationship with the current climate and politics in the United States and the world, I think is a challenging one. I think, we really try to stay out of it and just create great content and deliver that content to our audiences and hope that they respond to it. But fortunately, our stock price is doing quite well right now. And a lot of that is due to, our advancement in technology and launching our streaming platforms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Disney's been up to a few things lately, yes?
I have something to add to that. Dan Beckerman, I read something end of last year that you might, correct me if I'm wrong, but you might have stated that AEG is recession-proof, the company.
Recession resistant.
Resistant, yeah.
No one is
like,
recession.
Everybody just
no one is
down.
recession.
Yeah.
You read correctly. That's right.
We thought that in the music business too.
I'd love to hear your thoughts about that and why.
Yeah, I mean, our company, when you look at what happened in 2007, 8, and 9, we actually fared pretty well. And I think it's the nature of certain aspects of the entertainment business, I think, is part of it. I think people want to still be entertained. They want to go to live events. They want to go to concerts. They want to go to festivals. I think part of it, frankly, in our company is the markets that we're in, because we tend to focus our big capital investments in the larger markets. So we have billions of dollars invested in downtown Los Angeles, over $1 billion in London. We're in Berlin. We're in Shanghai. So we invest in markets that are sort of inherently strong, and I think they tend to be a little bit more, again, recession resistant. And some of our properties, I think, there's some stickiness to it with our teams and the loyalty and the fandom that comes with being a season ticket holder or a sponsor. I think there's still value that's perceived, so we're not as vulnerable to downturns. Now, that being said, we promote 15,000 concerts a year through our music promotions company, And we feel it there. We definitely feel it in certain markets. We feel it in certain genres. We feel it with certain artists. So that's why we're not recession-proof, but we hopefully can hold our own and weather a storm.
Okay, last question here, and then we'll have some final thoughts. The gentleman right there.
Oh, not him.
Oh, this is the roommate, isn't it?
Yeah, not Mark.
We're going to talk to.
I think we're out of time. Let's wrap it up.
No, two pre-statements and then a quick question. First off, I do want to actually confirm Dan's dedication to sports. It would be like the night before a midterm, and where's Dan? Oh, he's sleeping at Poly trying to get tickets, and that's absolutely true.
It's 100% true.
Getting tickets to the basketball
100%
games.
true.
So that's number one. Number two, Tom, I'd like to introduce you to Dan. He's actually quite talented at music. You should listen to him play. That's number two.
My I signed him before. Thanks.
And number three, this is a little bit of a tough question. You guys may not be able to fully answer it politically. But how do you feel about the ballooning salaries of the stars of your fields? It's a really, for a person just sitting here and hearing about a $330 million contract for a baseball player. I love baseball, but wow. So how do you guys feel about that type of thing in your economics of your world, of your industry?
Well, I guess it applies to athletes. It applies to artists, because we see it when we're bidding on tours for, Elton John's farewell tour for 300 dates all over the world. The prices are massive. The price for our athletes, whether it's a soccer player or a hockey player or a basketball player. I think as an economics major, I guess I would say it's sort of the free market at work. And it's difficult. It's challenging. The careers are getting shorter and shorter, and you see professional careers lasting 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. And we have to deal with athletes when they're retiring at age 33 and they have to lead another life. And I think that's part of what's putting pressure on salaries to maximize what someone can earn, and they're becoming more sophisticated in their negotiations. But I think the underlying economics of it are that, we sort of alluded to it earlier, about sort of the thriving sports and entertainment and live music business, is the industry is doing exceptionally well. And the way these leagues are structured is they're generally 50-50 partnerships between the franchises and the athletes. So whatever half of the top line goes directly to the athlete. In the case of basketball, in the case of hockey, that's the way that is structured. And when you do the math, it adds up to some big numbers. You might be able to speak to.
I feel okay about it.
No, you might.
No, it's very similar. It's the world we live in. I don't feel badly about people getting paid about it. I think that they've earned it. Most of these people, if not all of them, it's a high-risk, high-reward business if you want to do anything in entertainment. And I think it's what they do with their wealth. But more importantly, I think we have broader social issues to deal with than athletes and how much money they make, or recording artists. I think that we got to deal with things in our system a little bit better in terms of how wealth is distributed than we do worrying about how much money athletes make.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. And there are some athletes that still aren't quite paid what they need to be paid yet.
That's it.
Just saying. So with that said, a couple final thoughts. So I'm going to ask each of you guys a different final thought. So Tom, what is one thing you would want everyone to take away from today?
Well, hopefully look, the one thing I'd like you to know is that one of the greatest moments in my life is when I sit with an artist, and not when we sign them. Mm-hmm. That's a great moment as well, but a year, 2, 5 years down the line when you realize you've helped them make their dream come true. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. Yeah. And it's about their story, their life, what they're doing. We're there to amplify it. And the dream doesn't always have to be selling 5 million albums and selling out stadiums, Sometimes the dream's a little less ambitious than that. Sometimes it's, them being able to work with somebody or putting something together. It's about dreams is what we do. And that is fun because there's a whole puzzle that comes along with that that is really enjoyable to do,
Yeah.
and also with employees.
Yeah. No, that's great. We have this video where our Academy Award-winning or our nominees, they filmed themselves when they found out that they were nominated, and I literally cry every single time. I have goosebumps just talking about it, so you should check it out. It's really cool. Okay, so Dan, what can we all do to bring about change?
Well, I think about what we do at our company, and everybody contributes in a different way, and no one contribution is more valuable than another. And some people can donate $1 million, and that's great, and that's what they can do. Someone can volunteer at a school to read to a child. Somebody can work in their community at a food bank. And I don't think I think they're equally rewarding. And so I don't think people should be discouraged from trying to make a change because they feel like they can't have an impact. Because I've learned it's not just about the money. It's about creating an experience for someone. It can be giving someone access to something that maybe not seem like a big thing to you, but something that someone would never have had access to. So we tried to go out of our way to do little things, and that anyone can do it.
That's fantastic. Yes, you can clap for that. And then finally, Tim, you talked about Ralph Bunche, but what can all of our Bruin alumni do to continue the legacy of Bruin leadership and living the Bruin legacy?
Live with truth and passion. Everyone has their own path to walk in their own journey, and to be able to do that with integrity and honesty. I think oftentimes, with social media, we get so caught up in someone else's best life, which is not always the reality. So just to be able to live your own truth.
That's fantastic. And I mean, that's a pretty good final thought, yes? Can we give it up for the panelists, please? Thank you guys so much. You all have been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for being here today. There's lots of Alumni Day still to come. There is the Angel City Choral performing at 6:30, so make sure to check them out. And go Bruins. Thank you guys.